Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Whoa. Thanks for having me here. Really appreciate this honor of being able to address all you guys from around the country. It's nice to see the home team here, but last night I was able to meet a couple people, one from Orlando. I saw you walk in. And Phoenix, I don't think Phoenix is here, but there you are. Okay, good. So that was kind of nice to see some folks and start talking about problem-solving courts in other places. Come on in, have a seat. We're just getting started. So for some reason, I have a summer cold. I don't know how you get that in the middle of July, but I'm kind of fighting that a little bit. So let's talk about human trafficking, right? That's what you're here for. But the story about human trafficking actually didn't come along till way later in this journey. Now, you have to know that I'm a judge, but I'm a judge of the Franklin County Municipal Court, which is the lowest level of judgeship on the face of the earth, okay? However, that still does not stop me, like all other judges. You know, what happens when we put that black robe on and we zip it up, and when you zip it up, there's these chemicals that are released, and they go up into our noses, and we know everything at that point, right? So I did. I mean, I took the bench in 2004, and if we have a lot of prostitution cases in Franklin County. We have about 1,500 women arrested every year for prostitution. And I knew exactly what it was because I'd seen that movie Pretty Woman. Have anybody seen that movie Pretty Woman? You know? And I'd seen the Henry Winkler movie. What was that? A great movie. Night Shift, one of my favorite movies, thank you. And, you know, so I knew everything. It was a woman's choice. I didn't understand why she made that choice, but, you know, she was out to be with Richard Gere, ride around in the Ferrari, go to polo matches, and, you know, make a lot of money. So I knew everything. But as I was there on the bench, I kept seeing women that would come through looking like these women that I'm going to show for you. These are all women that eventually wound up being members of the Catch Court program. And CATCH stands for Changing Actions to Change Habits. You know, you got to have an acronym, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. So you have Emily here, career prostitute, felon. All these women have felonies as well. So in case you're from a felony court and you think, we're felonies, a little misdemeanor stuff doesn't matter. Well, you're going to see these same women coming through your courts. You know, they'll have a drug charge, or they'll have a theft charge, or an RSP charge, something like that. But you also probably see a background of soliciting. So then we have, I'll just go through them: Lisa, drugs, prostitution. And these are pretty much the way they look when they're coming through the door and they're chained up. But one thing I started to notice is, and I don't know if it's the same in your courts with the prostitution, is they just get arrested. There she is. Come on in. Is women in prostitution, you'll just see them get arrested over and over and over and over and jailed over and over and over. And that cycle continues. Anybody see that with the prostitutes in your jurisdictions? And so what does that mean? That means that there's a horrendous cost associated with this crime, right? Of police, prosecutors, public defenders, judges, jail, and then there's a lot of other costs, which we'll talk about perhaps later, all the unintended consequences with the birth and delivery costs, the hospitalization, some other stuff we'll talk about. But when I get to Mary, this is a typical thing that I see with women who have prostitution in common, and I like to call that the death look. She's been to jail. She's had such a hard life that there's no one even inside her anymore. You know, she's just blank. She's gone. And you'll continue to see that. Here's another one. Now this lady actually came to us with a pending aggravated trafficking in drugs out of Athens County, Ohio. And I know you guys aren't from Ohio and don't know a whole lot about Ohio, but if you're ever going through Athens County, don't sell any drugs, because if you get caught, you're going to prison. So this lady was headed to prison, and we were just starting catch court, and I had to call a common pleas court judge. Any of you in the higher up courts, like a common pleas felonies, So like what you don't know is like municipal court judges, we really can't even hardly look the felony court judges in the eye, So yeah, yes, Your Honor, So like when I remember my conversation with Judge Goldsberry, I called him, I said, this is Judge Herbert from Columbus. I didn't say this is municipal court judge, little nothing. So I had to put my best foot forward. And so I talked him into putting her on probation and letting her come to Columbus and go through our program. So all these ladies have very interesting stories. And what the hope is today, it won't get to it the first session, but the second session is you're going to hear how all their stories turned out. So I hope you're able to make it to the second session and learn through, if you have this problem-solving court, what we're doing for them, what they look like today, and the fact that this can be the story in your court as well. I can tell you, just to whet your appetite, that we just recently had an independent qualitative and quantitative study just published last month. And of all the women who've been accepted into catch court, that means they go through the referral process, and we can talk more about that. But if you're accepted into catch court, of all over 200 and some women accepted in, 72% have not recidivated yet. So hopefully that'll get your attention right off the bat. So you can go back to your conservative fiscal people and say, hey, we want to try to stop this revolving door that's we've been seeing all these years. Once again, she went to prison, prostitute. Now this one, we've all kind of seen the prostitute starts out kind of photo, but this is my own personal one. This is just as soon as she started in the life of prostitution. This is 9 years in her journey. And I just can't imagine a person looking in just that short a period of time, not happy, beat up, a lot bad going on, to that's not even the same person, right? And what's cool is I can show you what she looks like now this afternoon. You'll get to see that and learn what's going on in her life. But what an amazing pictorial. This lady, a lot of women start out when they're juveniles, so we'll talk about that. She started out in the juvenile division. That's her first slate photo, though, when she became an adult at 18. And then I have her last slate photo when she entered into the catch court program. She was in her 30s. Aggravated burglary. These are some of our worst criminals on earth. And judges face pressures on how to treat the worst criminals on earth, right? We have to get reelected based on being tough on crime. So when I started this catch program, how's that going to look? They were calling me Judge Hug-a-Thug, is what they were starting to call me, right? Because I believed in this program and what we could do with these serious criminals. But once you go through this and learn kind of what I've learned, and apologize if you already know a lot of this information we're going to go through, but I'm a middle-aged, if not older, white guy with a black robe on, and I thought it was the world's oldest profession. Anybody ever heard that comment before about prostitution? Ain't no doubt about it, man. World's oldest profession. And how about some people say it's a victimless crime? I used to be a prosecutor. Anybody ever heard that? Hey, we got 2 consenting adults here. They exchanged some money. What's wrong with that? Okay. And the words that might have come out of my mouth is, why don't we legalize it? I know that was ignorant. But yeah, let's clean it up. Let's tax it. Let's, get a benefit plan for the women that want to be doing this anyway, right? But then the true story is my turning point came in an arraignment court one day. They changed the law in Ohio with regard to domestic violence cases, and we judges started to have to see and hear a lot more information. We have a very powerful violence against women organization in Ohio, and they said, no, you're going to slow down, you're going to hear every fact, you're going to see every picture, and we're going to have hearings, temporary protection hearings to protect these women. So I'm sitting up on the bench, and they're bringing the prosecutors bringing up the women over here, and they're testifying, and the sheriff's bringing the defendants chained up on the wall over there. And, normally we'd handle about 15 of these on an average day. There was 36 of them that day. And I started to kind of get sick to my stomach, honestly, because the women that were coming forward, with this fresh, just red rings around their neck, hair pulled out, burns, glasses broken, arms in slings, pictures from hospital beds when they couldn't even come, black eyes, broken nose, and I started to say, how can I really not do this anymore? Because I don't like seeing this. I don't like hearing it. I'm like, I can't believe it. It goes on to this scale. And the defendants, they also, the reason we're calling it a paradigm shift here is because the defendants, I'll be honest with you, generally speaking, domestic violence defendants have a certain persona about them too. Not all of them. But if I'm going to exaggerate, it'd be the guy over here on the wall going, hey, judge, listen to me. Wait, you got a minute? Push the attorney out of the way, right, Tosh? Just push the public defender out of the way. Let me talk. Okay, they're very manipulative, powerful. They want to control everything. So this was going on, and the sheriff brought the next defendant out on the wall, and I looked over, and for a split second, I saw one of these victims. She looked exactly like one of these domestic violence victims. And I looked down at the file. She was just lost, like kind of one of the pictures of these ladies. And the file said prostitute. And I thought, well, what the hell, I got my thing down, I got probably like 8 more years to retire, I'm coasting, I get my job done, I leave whenever I want, I got my own parking spot, I'm going to get my check, I'm going to be able to go on and live the good life, what's happening here? But I went home and slept on it, and then the next night I kind of formulated my responsibility as a municipal court judge. Because we have so many of these cases in Franklin County, Ohio, I decided it was my responsibility to learn what influences, what forces or processes a woman goes through in order to sell what's most personally precious to her to the most vile of strangers. Because that doesn't make sense in my logical brain, how that could, many times a day. So what takes that little girl, and I think all you might have that picture by the Christmas tree holding your dolls, and what puts her in front of me 30 years later looking like that? And all of us in this room probably looking down our noses at her, calling her a crack whore. So what happened? What happened from that time to that time? And I want to share that with you today because that's been one of my biggest learning experiences, and then share you how I'm trying to change the world, the way the world thinks about this issue, and kind of the really cool results we're having based on that. So I did study the criminology of prostitution, and in its simplest form, criminology means the study of why a person commits a crime. And so I said, hey, what's going on here with this prostitution? So I'm just going to give you a few of the highlights that really got me. Number one, I learned that 1/3 of all women enter prostitution before they're even 15 years old. Now that one really got me, because that one totally smacked me in the face with regards to this pretty woman scenario, right? That this is a choice. You're, 13 or 14 years old? How about then 62% of all prostitutes enter before they're even 18? You're not even old enough to vote or enter into a contract yet. You're deciding to go out and sell your body on the mean streets of Columbus, Ohio, or Orlando, Florida, or whatever. Are they making these choices to do this? It was starting to hit me. And that 90% of all of your 62%, all your juvenile prostitutes are runaways. I said, now that, whenever you get that high a number, there's a reason. There's a big reason. So I asked the police. I said, hey, what's up with this? Why are these girls running away? And the police said, well, boys, we run away because we're just ignorant and stupid, right? That's what we are. And girls are usually running away from something. And that's when I found out, and this is a national number. In Columbus, Ohio, it's much higher nationally, and that's an old study. 72% of all these young ladies are experiencing some significant sexual and physical abuse in the home that causes them to run away. That's a universal story with prostitutes. Hey, you know, and I'll tell you just a personal one that just gets me. Mom remarries, stepdad's in the picture, stepdad starts abusing an 11-year-old girl. She goes to mom, tells mom, mom doesn't believe her, you know, you just missing dad or whatever. It continues for a year, mom's cleaning, come to find out the new stepdad was videotaping the sexual encounters with the new daughter. Mom finds him, mom freaks out, calls the cops, he goes to prison for life, daughter's out of the house, she's put with bio dad. But she's as messed up as a kid can be, right? Dad starts selling her on the internet. She runs away, finds somebody, starts using some drugs, and we're off to the races. And then 5 years later, she appeared in front of me at 18 years old. Just completely, and we're going to go through that process. I didn't want to give you too much too soon. But how does this population then wind up selling themselves? Well, we know from psychological studies that the human being can develop a self-defense mechanism to sexual abuse. An individual is able to disassociate this issue, and then that confuses love and normal sexual boundaries. So they're actually sexualized, if you will, and they don't really understand, you know, what they are and aren't supposed to be doing. I had another point, I forgot what that was. Maybe it'll come back to me. So, we got a lot of runaway kids. So just in case you don't believe me, I got some great videos to show you. And what time are we out of here? Is it 11:15 or 11:30? What? 11:30? Okay.
If you pay the price, you can get what you want. I can get it for you.
Really?
Now, if you want something really young, that $200 it just costs a little more than that.
Sure.
But how young you talking? Talk to me.
Well, how young do you have?
Well, I don't have nothing younger than 14.
Okay, no, 14 is good.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, you're going to have to add something to that.
Sure.
What you willing to add to that, too? Just talk to me.
Well, like I said, this is my first time out.
You know. Now, you...
So the girls over there cost $2, is that?
That's the women.
The women.
Now, if I told you $2, and you know you want something young, and I tell you to add something to it, just tell me, you just pick a figure to that.
I guess, what, 3?
3. If you do 3, you got it.
Domestic.
So what do we have here? All of a sudden, I'm taking you down a little road here. Taking you down a road where a girl gets out there, and now what do we see? We see women and girls being sold by a person, right? He's what we used to call, what, a pimp? He's a broker of little girls. So this is when we start introducing some other elements. And then we'll start to go to law school here. Now, who actually does want to go to law school? Did? Today? Right now? Okay. Nobody. Good. That's cool. Come on up here, man. I'm so happy to see you. Right. And this is so exciting. You want to be close. I love it. So, this is probably one of my favorite parts of the entire presentation, folks. So bear with me, and I hope you enjoy my excitement if you're not excited. Because I found, you know, I got C's all the way through night law school, and so like anything like legally that pops out to me, like sticks with me. And so this is cool. So I was going along, and when I started the Catch Court program in 2009, there wasn't even a law on human trafficking in Ohio. Okay, that didn't come along until later. So I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Sorry, this is being taped. Supreme Court, somebody's going to get me. So let's go to law school really quickly, but let's have fun doing it, unlike what I had. All right, so can you see that? Barely. This is the law in Ohio of what is prostitution. And it says that No person shall engage in sexual activity for hire. Can you all follow me on that? Do you agree that in Ohio, if you engage in sexual activity for hire, you do this behavior, then you're a prostitute, right? I don't have full agreement here. Why not? You think I'm going to trick you today?
Well, I'm not sure if for hire presumes that the money is being paid to the individual.
Yeah.
And
Well,
in this
yeah.
case, that's
Well, no, we'll get there. But let's just keep it simple. If you go out, not saying that you would, and you say, hey, Judge Herbert, how about, $20? I might give you $20. Are we guilty of engaging in sexual activity for hire? Heck yeah. That makes us a prostitute under Ohio law. Do I got you? No, man, it's a tough group. I don't know how I can make it any clearer. But anyway, you know what I did here? I found my highlighter on my PowerPoint. And because the last presentation I did before this was a diorama. I used to try to come in with a terrarium, and it didn't work. You got to be old to remember dioramas, right? Okay, so look at that behavior right there. Engage in sexual activity for hire. Now let me put up the brand new law on human trafficking as it states in 2012. No person shall recruit, lure, entice, isolate, try to get a person to come in and then compel them, or knowing that they'll be compelled to what? Red letters. Couldn't hear you. Wow. Is that the same exact language that's up in the prostitution statute? I'm not fooling with you. This is right there on the screen. So logically then, I'm going to ask you that doesn't this this is what defines a victim of human trafficking in Ohio. Then because of this law and what it says, isn't it true then that 100% of human trafficking victims in Ohio are also prostitutes? Nope. Why not? Yeah.
Because by law, there has to be a person that is doing this to somebody else. So I'm from New York, and we have human trafficking intervention courts. And this is a big topic or an issue, right? If there's not a person, but there's poverty or lack of system coordination or people falling through cracks,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't legally count as a person recruiting, learning, whatever. So
Yeah.
there are people that are, and there are people that don't have pimps or chapters.
Yep.
So
There is that scenario.
it's true for a lot of people, but not for everyone, and the law does not allow it to be inclusive of people if they're over 18 and there isn't a person doing this to them.
Right. So I'm not necessarily talking about that because we have the word compelled here, but we need to define compelled. But what you're going to find out is the police are going to go into a hotel, and a woman's going to be there that has answered an ad, and she's going to offer to do an act for a certain amount of money. And the police arrest her for prostitution. And they have no idea how she got there, or why she's there, or who may be out in the parking lot, or what relationship they have, or any of that. They just know she engaged in sexual activity for hire, and they arrest her and they put her in jail as a prostitute. Okay? So, here's where I keep going on this, guys. So I argue that you're not a victim of human trafficking in Ohio unless you actually engage in sexual activity for hire. Because that's what the law in Ohio says. How you get there, we're going to talk about that later. But you still have to do that. So that makes you a prostitute. So, the effective date on this statute, June 27, 2012, we as a society said this is what human trafficking is in Ohio. Right? That's when the governor signed the bill, made it into law. This is human trafficking. And in that law, the definition of prostitution is in there, right? So what I like to say is look at the effective date of this prostitution statute. Effective 2000 BC. This is fun. You're going to love to talk about this with your friends and neighbors if you get through it with me, right? So So what I'm saying is if we in 2012 as a society said, hey, this is what human trafficking is, and prostitution is part of human trafficking, then I say, you think human trafficking has possibly been around since the beginning of prostitution? That maybe when it first got started, there was somebody behind it, manipulating, controlling, domineering these women to do this. So that's how we get to, it's not the world's oldest profession, but it's the world's oldest oppression. I didn't make that up. But it's kind of fun to say. All right, so let's get down to compelled. In Ohio, compelled does not require that it be openly displayed or even physically exerted. The element of compelled has been established if the victim's will is overcome by force, fear, duress, or intimidation. And we've got some great case law now coming out of Ohio that says even if you use drugs to manipulate a woman, we had a Nelms case, was our first human trafficking case, and David Nelms had a car full of women, and he was traveling around Ohio on the internet saying, I'm going to be in Toledo for the weekend. You want to meet a girl? And he would say, here's your heroin. Go in and do all this stuff at the bachelor party. Come back out with your money, and I'll give you more heroin. If you don't, I'm not going to give you any more heroin. That was enough to meet the element of human trafficking. He got convicted of human trafficking. Okay? I don't really have time for the law school fact pattern. So, what I'd like to share with you is the life of what it's like to be a woman who is in prostitution. Is it like the night shift where you got Henry Winkler and looking out for you? Or is it the Pretty Woman where you've got Richard Gere? Or is this situation different? Now, I have to let you know that my presentation is going to get traumatic for you from this point on. Not that it hasn't been thus far, but you're going to start to see and hear things that are going to be secondary trauma to you. And please feel free to get up and leave if you can't handle it, or if you need a break or whatever. It happens to me universally, so I give everybody carte blanche right to do that.
I look for a younger female, a younger female with a backpack or something, because the first thing I'm going to think is, okay, she's leaving home. She's leaving home for a reason. More than likely, she just got into it with her parents, or she decides she wants to run away from home.
It really doesn't boil down to money. If she in it for just the money, then it's not going to really work out. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The girl has to be so love drunk, if you will, off of me to where as though she would do anything.
I make sure she has what she needs, personal hygiene, take her, get her nails done, take her to buy an outfit, spend time with her, take her out to eat, make her feel wanted, but I don't give her any money.
You didn't hear what I said when you called me?
I'm lost.
You lost. Now, I'm not...
lost. I don't know where I am. The Bronx Parkway is flooded and it made me get off, and I don't know where I am. I'm simply hard. I don't even know how to get to there from here anymore.
Hello, you better shut the f*** up while you're driving my car and act like you got some sense. Are you deaf?
Yes, I heard you.
No. Well, let me know when you hear me. Like you want to say, yeah, I died, and have a smart f***ing mouth. Then you want to cry like a little girl, tired of going over the same dumb with you every f***ing day.
Some women do it because, they want to be in a better predicament than what they're in.
Okay. So, in the beginning, he talked about what he was looking for. I'm looking for a girl with a backpack. They're out there looking for these girls. They're at the mall. Who's looking for what? Hey, they bring up conversations. They try to go into their lives quickly, try to be supportive. And then there's the other element of, did anybody feel any fear with that phone call? Any intimidation? The guy on the phone with that girl? Duress. Is that the nice boss that you should be when you're a pimp? So here's the Nelms case. Now this is a picture of a woman who you're going to also see. She graduated my program, but she brought this horrific photograph in, and she said she'd been gone for a long time, and she brought this in and said, Judge Herbert, can you please, everywhere you go speak, can you show them that this is what our lives are like, are really like? And what happened to her was every so often the pimps will play a game, and they see who can beat a woman to where she needs 150 stitches worth of damage, and they take a pool, and one guy beats her, and then if he doesn't make it, then the pool continues, and she had more severe damage than that, I'll tell you. So we're going to keep getting a little dark. We're going to keep getting more into this world, and then we're going to kind of turn the corner. This guy right here, he put a video on the internet on how to be the best pimp you can be. And he's instructing other people on how you can make all this money. And I captured about a minute of just the issue of intimidation, violence, fear, how you have to treat these women who you have working for you. I thought this was pretty instructive.
Like a criteria, it's like the jewelry, the clothes, and all that. The cars is a criteria. It do happen. It's part of the game. You know what I mean? Because you got to establish a certain thing. You got to establish some fear in that female in order to get that respect. You must establish that. And she's going to try you to see if you qualified to get that respect from her. So it's going to bring some fear. And what I'm saying is violent, you know what I mean? And it's something that don't have to take place, but it do take place because you're establishing something here that I am the one that you listen to and believe in and nobody else. And like I said, when I had to fight the girl, it wasn't for money. You know what I mean? Maybe you left the stroll and I told you not to. You know what I mean? When you violate certain things, you have to check them. If you do it, verbally, okay. But in the pimp game, it don't necessarily work like that. You have to really put your feet down. You know what I mean? You have to really show that girl. You have to almost, if you told that girl you was going to kill her, when it come time to fight, you have to almost tell her to beg you to say, Daddy, no, please don't kill me. It has to be that serious.
Does that leave any doubt in your mind that these women are under fear and that they're being compelled to do this? I'm trying to build my case up here for the fact that this is more like human trafficking and that the women who are prostitutes are more like victims than they are defendants. And that's why we get the victim-defendant paradigm shift going on in America right now. And that's what's so cool, because when we have a program like Catch Court or others that helps them get out of this, what we're seeing. So I have just one more here. Miriam and I were in Washington, D.C., snowed in, and I got this video off a detective from Las Vegas. I don't know if you got to see his presentation or not, but he sent me this video. So this video, I give this presentation to actually the women, the 30-plus women in my Catch Court program, and they're like, you need more. You need more, Judge Herbert. You need to show more. This is not quite exactly how bad it is. So I saw this, asked him if he'd send it to me, and he did. Now, just to set this up, you're going to see, you're going to see this, you're going to see this guy right here walking down. What's the main drag in Las Vegas? What's that? Las Vegas Boulevard. He's walking down the boulevard by himself. You'll see him approached by a girl in a yellow shorts and outfit. She's a prostitute. She's trying to pick him up. She's calling to him. Walking off with him. He says no. So she comes back empty-handed at 1:36 in the morning. At 1:42, 12 minutes later, pimp comes by, sees her. There they are. Pretty tough to watch, but it doesn't help us to be ignorant about what's really going on out there, does it? Because she's going to get arrested and she's going to be before some judge or magistrate in your court, and this is what she's got going on. And so let's talk about why she says the things she says, or why she acts the way she acts, and what the psychological things. I don't need to tell you fastest growing crime, all that stuff. I don't even like all those stats. But how does a girl get involved in this? Boyfriends, all right? I have 2 girls. Anybody else have girls, nieces, daughters, anything like that? Boyfriends, older boyfriends are pretty much the enemy. You see your 15-year-old daughter coming in the door with anybody over 17, and I got a red flag up for you right now, okay? False advertising with the big thing is on these cell phones. And I'll just cut right straight to it, okay? Cut right straight to it. If you've got a girl and she's got a smartphone, she's in danger. Now, how do I know that? Judge Herbert, what are you saying? You're trying to get us all scared. You're trying to scare us all. Well, you know what? As the lowest level judge on the face of the earth, I also get to do search warrants because the higher up judges don't like getting woke up in the middle of the night. Right? So they bring all these search warrants to me all the time, especially the human trafficking ones. And there's this new thing called KIK. Anybody heard of it? Right here, because you're younger. Right? It's the new social what? It's like the new Facebook for girls or for young kids, right?
It's like a messenger.
Tell me, I need to know. Yeah.
It's a messenger app. You can share photos and stuff.
Like Snapchat?
No, it's more just like instant messaging. You can do like group chats and stuff.
So this girl, she's 12 years old, she's on Kik. A 28-year-old guy, we didn't notice at the time, sends her child pornography pictures on her phone. She didn't do anything about it, but mom accidentally found the child pornography on the phone, calls 911, police come out, police get a search warrant to go find the sender of the child pornography. And that's where I come in. You can go track them down and get them. Turns out it was a 28-year-old guy. So this, I can't even begin to tell you, if you have a girl, a young girl, and you can define young however as you want. Mine are 21 and 20, or 22 and 24, and I'm still a little scared. But you can bet your bottom dollar if she was in middle school to high school, I'd be all over it. What's she doing on that phone? I think they have stuff you're able to kind of monitor that. I don't know for sure, but I'd be all over that if I was you. So they meet him, and here's another one. I got to show you another search warrant. Excuse me. Police brought this out. I'm like, I can't believe this is going on in Columbus, Ohio. This is exactly what my presentation sounds like, and I got to show the article that was written in the paper after they arrested him, right? Man facing prison for pressuring girl for sex. So the federal complaint against this guy indicates that he met this 14-year-old girl. It was online, that he paid her to send him nude photos of herself. This is 14 years old now, right? This is right in our wheelhouse that we've been talking about. She did that, and she said that he sent him photos of his whatchamacallit, and then offered to pay her $1,000 more if she'd engage in sex with him. And that's where the popo came in. All right? So Judge Herbert signs the thing. He's arrested. He wound up getting like 10 years in prison or something like that, okay? So this stuff is happening. I'm just not making it up. You see it in your papers, but we kind of gloss over this whole thing. And we kind of, I don't know what it is. We need to get this I've got the super vigilant protect women and girls thing going on. And now, I was going on vacation. This was years and years ago. And I said, I want to get in the mind of the enemy. I want to read. I want to think. I want to learn how to think like these guys think. So I went on Amazon.com, got a book, right? Like $6.99. 48 Laws of the Game, Pimpology by Pimp and Ken. And can you see me down on spring break at my dad's, the motorhome park when I'm at the pool, reading like, Catching Fire. It's good, You should read it, But my big takeaway from this book, and there's a lot of stuff in it that just you can't even believe. But here's kind of the takeaway from the book. Their theory. Their mission statement. Make her believe in heaven, and she will follow you to hell. She's got to be so love drunk off me that she'll do anything, right? It can't be about the money. I am the one. She doesn't get anything unless it's through me. You see, these statements are coming back, right? It's a theory that we need to know, and we need to know about it in our court systems. Because the impact that each one of you can have on one of these girls is phenomenal. And I know that from experience, and I'm going to be sharing the rest of the story with you this afternoon. But what we've been able to do, just as an experiment and learning along the way, once you start to open their doors to exit out of this lifestyle, they'll help you. They will help you. It's not going to be like your typical probationer that you have to why didn't you get your driver's license? And why didn't you bring back those AA slips? And why, you know what I'm saying? The normal probationer hates probation. They hate their judge, hate the probation officer, they hate the police, they hate everybody. These guys don't. But here's kind of another realistic, but I'm not going to, I tell some bummer stories only because it's the truth, but then I end on some really happy stuff when you wait till you see this afternoon.
In school, I excelled. I was on the honor roll, the principal's honor roll, and I was like an overachiever. I ran track, I ran for student body president. I wrote a book on drugs and its effects, and I won a Young Authors Award. Gigi would start to take me or my little friends to the roller skating or to the mall and stuff and everything, and he was like a father figure. Gigi was there at sometimes, and he would talk to me and take me out and give me all these lavish gifts or do all these things for me and stuff, and then he would tell me that sex-wise, he said, you don't need to give it up for free. He would try to put in my head all these different things and how men really think and how men are. And so I would believe him. He had sex with me when I was 13. And he's a very, he uses his manhood to hurt, break you in, I guess. Gigi's hours were from 6 in the evening to about 5:30 to 6 in the morning. The girls would bring in their money and give it to him and stuff. He was married to all of us, I guess. That's just how they do. Everything was his.
First time I've seen that, it makes me want to cry, doesn't it? I mean, I've seen it, but it's the first time I've used it in presentation. So, how many of you have prostitution in your jurisdictions? If you don't raise your hand, I bet you just because you're afraid to. Human trafficking coming to a neighborhood near you. This is the truth. This is what's happening, and so it's really cool to be a part of the solution. So you're saying we've kind of gotten to this, but once a girl's lured in, a lot of people don't understand. Why don't they just run away when it starts to get bad? And that's because of the love relationship. They start out as friends, then it's love and sex, and then business, just like Sarah. They use wartime cultist and terroristic prisoner control tactics, which are a combination of emotional, physical, and sexual violence, drugs, and economic dependence. You can't get anything unless it's from me. Isolation from any friends, family, any kind of positive relationships that might be a supportive role, they take you away from those. Almost every one of our women have a child by their pimp or trafficker. And that really confuses them as to, well, he loves me, we had a kid together. And, now this is the one that I do think I have time to talk about. I love these epiphanies. I was in court and I had a domestic violence case. And the woman comes out and she's just in front of me like this with her hands in her, cuffed in front of her. And it's just, I've got a lot of domestic violence cases, and it's just like all the others for me. And hey, what happened? I'm just flying through it, trying to get to the next one. And the prosecutor stands up and gives his recommendations on, we ought to have counseling, we ought to have drug and alcohol, we ought to have this, we ought to have that, we ought to blah, 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 and I'm checking my boxes, right? And then it comes time. In Ohio, we have what's called the victims' rights laws. It means that the victim has a chance to stand up and talk before the sentence is passed. You guys probably have them in your jurisdictions as well. So I say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, do you have anything you'd like to say? And he stands up, and he's all Mr. Articulate, He's like, Your Honor, I just appreciate you and what you've done, your time here today, and your concern for her and counseling you. I think that's really necessary. I love her, and we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. I'm like, yeah, all right. He sits down, and then I do some other things, and I say, now, ma'am, is there anything that you would like to say before sentence is passed? And she just can't even look at me, And she's kind of like, well, Your Honor, yeah, I heard everything you said. Yeah, I'm going to do all that. Whatever you tell me to do, I'll do. But I just got to tell you what happened. I'm like, here we go, another defendant story. And she said, yeah, well, it was Thursday night, and he got drunk. He didn't know what he was doing. He was going crazy, and he just started beating me. And Friday came around. As soon as he woke up, he started hitting that bottle, and the punishment started coming again. And I had to go out and do a couple things for him. I didn't know what she meant by that. And I came back, and he was enraged. He was even madder, and he started beating me again. And by Friday night, he hit me that one last time. And I looked, and I saw his arm was laying there. So I bit it. And I said, that's it? She goes, that's it, Your Honor. And now I'm here. So I look at the complaint, I'm like, it's one bite, I look at the complaint, sure enough, it says 1 bite mark. And the prosecutor, I'm looking at the prosecutor, he looks at me, he got it before I did. He said, Your Honor, I'm looking at her record. She does have several soliciting charges in her background. And then my light popped out of my head. I thought to myself, that's her pimp. And he sent a message to her. No matter what, I can pick up this phone. I can call the police, the people that are supposed to protect you. I can have you arrested. I can have you taken down and put into jail. where I can bring you whites and put money on your books and tell you I love you. But then when we go to court, I've got the prosecutor eating out of my hand. And that judge, he rolled that red carpet out for me all the way in. And he looked at me all tender when I was talking, because I'm the victim and you're nothing. And I'm proving that to you right now, time and time again. I've got everybody in the whole system on my side, and you are nothing. Now, don't tell anybody, and well, I guess it's being recorded, so I guess I don't really care. I'm running for election this year. Don't let them vote me in. But I was as snide as I could be to this guy. And I don't know if snide's even the right word. So I said, well, she never once got her head down up. I said, sir, Mr. Prosecutor, I don't ever do this on an agreed plea deal, but I'm not going to do any of your recommendations. I said, you know what I'm going to do instead? I said, I'm going to make her stay away from him. I'm going to put a stay-away order on for 2 years. He pops up like a Roman candle. Your Honor, Your Honor, Your Honor. No. That's not what I talked about the prosecutor with. That's not what we talked about. That's not the agreement. That's not what I want. I love her more than anything. I need her back. We're going to be okay. Just all she needs is a little bit of counseling. This is where it got good. Because I said, Mr. So-and-so, I said, I have a theory. I said, do you know that a bite could lead to a hair pull? That's what I told him. Hair pull. Somebody's got to get that. A bite leads to a hair pull, Anyway, so I said, your life is in danger. I am not going to endanger your life by allowing her to be around you for the next 2 years. And God love her. That little head raised enough for me to see a little curl of a smile come out of her mouth, because she knew that we finally got it, And so that's kind of what you're dealing with that you're not seeing. What's going on with your domestic violence cases? Because every one of these women are domestic violence victims. So are your prosecutors interviewing them like they're victims of something else? And let's talk about some other stuff here. They are re-identified, but this is a big one, branding. Have y'all heard about the branding? Let me show you a brand of this. Is a girl in my court. She's got a big, huge tattoo on the side of her neck that says white boys, and then initials. Now, how many of you women are going to go out and get that tattooed on your neck? Good girls. That's not cool, and it's very painful to have that removed. So I finally got her to tell me what happened. They got her high, she passed out, she woke up with that tattoo. Now, I've got a video of another one of the women in my program. This one will knock your socks off. And even if you're not wearing socks, it'll still knock you, because I know it's summer.
I used to go into drug houses where they have a tattoo artist who is paid to stay there. They like to brand the girls because that signifies the money that you make is to come to this house. You belong to us. So from that point, I had a gang insignia on my neck. I also had 3 brandings of the boyfriend's name, one of which even said property of right above my private areas. And after I battled the addiction and was getting my life back together, every time I looked in the mirror, I was reminded of the violence that I suffered.
Let's go. So that's Jennifer. She started a nonprofit called Survivors Inc. Instead of INC, it's INK. And she's raised enough money to cover up all the tattoos of all the women friends of hers in our court. Isn't that beautiful? Because, she's like, every time you put your shirt on, you see that or whatever. So that's the kind of heart that you're dealing with. She actually never graduated from Catch Court. But she got enough treatment. She's never recidivated. She gurgled back up saying, I want to be part of this mission. Nothing in it for her. But that's the kind of heart you're going to see over and over if you can talk to these women if you can find out a little bit more about them. So what's kind of cool, though, is they don't just walk up and say, hey, I'm a human trafficking victim. Help me out here, you know? So where are they sold? All of you probably heard of Backpage.com. If you haven't, write it down. Go look it up in your town. You can see how many girls are being prostituted in your town. I didn't do it when I was here. I usually do it. I haven't been feeling well. Where I go, I usually do it. Matter of fact, if I can get an internet up there, I probably could. I could show you guys what's going on right now in Louisville. And you'll see a whole bunch of ads like this, probably in Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know how many people they have here, but in Columbus, Ohio, we probably have 150 by this time of day up, okay? And they're all saying, they're a lot more suggestive than this, but why do I use this picture of this girl? Because she wound up being in catch court. She wound up going through the life cycle of prostitution in Columbus, Ohio, and instead of being the pretty woman scenario, this is how she looked when she met us. Okay? It's a killer. It's a killer lifestyle. So, you know, broken bones, rapes. Now, the last one, I'm not a big stat guy, but the last one's pretty darn important. I'm going to walk all the way over here, give you one of those. This one right here, 47% suffer traumatic brain injury. That's a super huge number for you to get inside your brain because it also affects how you talk to them and how they will talk to you. There's a little, that's the scientific term for a piece of your brain right here, okay? So when a right-hander hits you in your any little disturbances of that starts to erode your ability to think cognitive thoughts, process through stuff. And you can't see it. I mean, you just have to have a kind of a thing somewhere on a checklist that says, has she had a TBI, assessment. Even in catch court, it slips by us. We're like, why is she doing this? I got till 10:30, right? And then you're out of here. So this is an article in the Columbus Dispatch. 2 jurors wiped tears from their eyes in a Franklin County courtroom yesterday as a sobbing 7-year-old rape victim recalled being carried from her bed and sexually assaulted by a curly-haired intruder. The girl hid her face in her hands and refused to look at her attacker seated about 15 feet behind her. Is he here? Real far away, the prosecutor said. Yeah, but is he in this courtroom? Yes, he is, but that's why I'm here. Sank her head into her hands and started to sob, looking for her victim's advocate. You all have victim advocates? Okay, highly important people in your court system. The highly more important than you'll see why. So it goes on and on and on about how he had cut the screen out, put the coat over her, took her, raped her. The little girl had to describe how she performed fellatio, was raped both vaginally and anally. And then when she cried throughout the assault, he took a knife out and said, shut up or I'm going to cut your head off. He then left her at a corner, an unknown corner. He took her and left her out there. Now, you read this every week in the paper, don't you? You read an article like this every week. At least we do in Columbus, Ohio. There's a rape of a kid every week in Columbus, Ohio. Now, why am I bringing up this particular article? Because this article was written August 27th of 1991. Was that like 25 years ago now? And that little 7-year-old girl is going to graduate my catch court program now. She's not they're not I was in the prosecutors at the time. We used to, yay, we convicted the bad guy. Hand mom a pamphlet. Hey, if she has any problems, call that number. So your victim advocates need to develop some sort of follow-up care especially on the ones we know are going to wind up with messed up, incredible bound problems, trauma. So get to your victim advocate, people. Have them call me, whatever. But she has TBI, and she's about ready to graduate. And she just can't seem to follow through on stuff. You're about ready to graduate, Farrah. What's going on? here's a list. We give her 3 things to do. By tomorrow, come back to us having done those 3 things. I called and I left messages, and that's all I got. So we're just struggling. So TBI is huge. I'm just telling you, we're lucky in Columbus because Ohio State University has a Traumatic Brain Institute right there. But you got to look at that one. Sorry. This one is this is the last of the Mohicans of stuff, but you got to see it.
Well, the girls that turned down a trick, they got beat up, they got chased around with sledgehammers, thrown through windows, thrown through doors. It wasn't too pretty. I know there was times where I did whatever I was going to do with this person, and he pulled a knife out on me, and he wouldn't pay me, he wouldn't nothing, and I was kind of left stranded and everything, and he just took me out and he just dumped me like in the middle of the street.
I watched a girl get pistol whipped, beat with the butt of a gun. Watched a girl get choked out. I've seen the worst of it, I watched a pimp put a female in his trunk. She could be breaking the rules, she could not be doing it right. Like, okay, it's been times like a female would try to hold back money from him, and that'll make him beat her. Or if the female's not applying herself, she's not putting herself out there to be sold, if she just walking up and down the street but not doing nothing at all, or she's been out there 2 hours and hasn't caught one trick, that makes any pimp angry, man. And it's been times like, okay, if she doesn't do something right, or if she don't bring back enough money, all that's calls for, a pimp to get real aggressive, and they're called like so-called guerrilla pimps.
In a lot of my cases, I see.
Okay, so what are the real world results of this? So you have a defendant in your courtroom. You're going to have a defendant charged with prostitution in your courtroom. It's going to have these results, right? But we're learning you're going to have a defendant charged with domestic violence and drug charges and theft. Hey, girl, go in and boost those shoes for me or you're going to get it. And they get popped for the theft offense. Spreading of a contagion. All of a sudden, we're starting to say, hey, this human trafficking thing is big. It's big. It's not just prostitutes. So most communities are unprepared to treat the multiple complex needs. Look at it. What do we have? Top 1, trauma, okay? Trauma. Alcohol and drugs. Mental health. High degree of major depression at a minimum. Borderline personality. You start to see women's mental health eroded organically based on this lifestyle. Self-esteem, the traumatic brain, dental, comprehensive women's health care, if that's not up there. Shame and guilt is enormous. These women come in, they absolutely think they offer nothing to anyone ever. Societal acceptance, housing, job skills. Let's see what my next slide is. Oh, yeah. I only got 10 minutes left. Now, one thing I want to tell you is that we're trying experiments in Columbus. We'd put them in treatment, and we used to use kind of 60-year-old model of addiction treatment. And that is pretty well prescribed, big bookonian, AA, 12 steps, which you've got one of these women who have trauma as their major focus. They'll say, hey, I got this situation I want to talk about. Hey, we'll get to that, like in about a year. But shut up and we got to get your drug and alcohol thing under control before you even can understand what's going on with all that other stuff. Now, one thing, a brilliant person on my staff and a brilliant person at Amethyst, which they came up with this idea, and it's miraculous. So the scale of trauma, whether you know it or not, I'm learning this. We all have some form of trauma. I got rear-ended on the way to work in February, totaled my car. I experienced trauma, right? We all have some form of trauma. Been married 28 years, you have some form of trauma. No, so anyway, but that's one incident of trauma with one person that I didn't know and I'm never going to see again. Okay? It's the lowest level of trauma. They have a name for it, I can't remember. Then there's another level of trauma, which kind of is that ongoing trauma from somebody we know. Let's say sexual or physical abuse in the home. So your little girl and your stepdad's abusing you. Multiple traumas over time by somebody that you know. That takes you a significant notch up. There's another one in there I forgot. But you get all the way up to the top of the trauma scale, and it's multiple traumas by multiple people often, and then the scale is how often during a time period. And the women that are going to come in front of you with this type of trauma I think it's beyond anything that we understand today. And our treatment people said, let's try an experiment. Let's take a group of about 15 of your people and let's put them in their own house. And as soon as they're stabilized, let's go straight to their trauma. Let's go straight to that trauma. Straight to that what happened. How can we heal that? EMDR, CBMT, DBTBT, all these things I don't know what they mean. But we got them. Let's start using them. And we used to have, and I don't know what I know we talked about stats of, we used to have 20% of our women staying in treatment and 80% bolting. Now we've got 70% staying and 30% bolting. Because they get in and what we're learning is it's the trauma that's making them use the drugs. Okay? It's not the fact that they're a drug addict and they have the drug addict pleasure center freaking out like we know from our drug courts, and y'all probably have drug courts, and I'm going to hopefully get to talk to you about drug courts in the way I think you ought to modify them. Remind me if I don't say that, okay? Please, someone remind me of that if you have a drug court and you want to know my thoughts. So it's not necessarily that addict pleasure center of the mind is going, it's the, oh my God, I can't even survive in this without this drug. And if you take them and you give them a home and you give them treatment, you give them safety, you give them food, you start to reunite them with their kids, you start job training, holy stuff. We're finding that the drug addiction just falls off. But I'm going to announce it here on live TV that I think someday, and I hope it's in my lifetime, someday somebody at some university somewhere is going to come up with this. And it's going to be called human trafficking syndrome. Because it's not just post-traumatic stress syndrome. We've got a veterans docket, and what they go through is absolutely horrible. And I've sat through that, and I'm like, holy cow, rip my lungs out, it's so horrible. And that's a whole other area. This is different. This is a different sort of thing. I mean, women will tell me, hey, Judge Herbert, it's traumatic to get raped, and I've been raped, but it really sucks when someone sells you into that rape. And they'll just say stuff, hey, you remember what it's like when the door on the car closes and there's no handle? They live this all day long. So I think that there's going to be a diagnosis someday, human trafficking syndrome, and this is right just starting. This is all starting. So you're right at the beginning of this wave. So if you want to go back, we're going to do questions here, and you're leaving at 10:30 anyway. Any questions in the last 5 minutes? We're going to get into next, we're going to talk about recognizing a woman as a human trafficking victim. Then we're going to talk about why they don't just come up and tell you that I'm a human trafficking victim, I need help. And then we're going to talk about the exciting conclusion of the day, and that's, is what we're doing worth it? Where I then will tell you some of the stories about the women who you've seen and what their lives are like now, and how that's possible for you and the women, and you're coming through your court. And we do transgenders as well. But questions before we take our break. Yes, ma'am.
The examples that you gave of the pimps were primarily African American. However, I run into and see in my court a wider variety. In fact, white Anglo-Saxon businessmen who are engaged in these practices.
Yeah, no, I'm very sensitive to that. I hate the fact that my videos are all of African American men. My women get all over me about it, and I just can't find video of anybody else, any other race out there just kind of saying proud, hey, here's what it's all about. So I'm looking for it, but yes, it is a total cross-section. It's not, trust me.
And it's also white-collar
You know what? I feel, as gangs, all the gangs are doing this, I feel self-conscious running these videos because of that fact.
Great job. I just wanted you to say that.
No, trust me, I feel very self-conscious about that. But I also want people to know, that the mentality of this is what you got to do. So, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought it up. Yes, sir.
So is the majority of prostitution these days through trafficking, or are there still traditional brothels?
All right, I can tell you my answer. I don't know what your stats are showing in New York, but only 92% of all prostitutes that we assess are human trafficking victims. The other 8% out there are your traditional, they want to do it, they make that decision, they're on the internet willingly. It's the way they're paying for things, and they don't have a PIN. That's what our assessments are showing. But, our studies are mainly, we get street prostitutes in, and now we're just getting more and more into the internet. So I bet the internet may be higher because it's a lot safer. Women are starting out. But that's also another good question. The police run what we call demand studies in Columbus. They'll put a fake ad for a girl on Backpage.com, and then they'll see what the responses are, how fast they are, and where they're coming from. And it's amazing. It's the next part of my show. I won't have it in there yet, but we just did one, and I was amazed. So you'll get men recruiting these women. Hey, have you thought about? They have all this secret language they use. So that might be either my time or a phone call. That's a good question. So, yes, sir.
Amateur porn industry play into this?
Big time. I'm glad you brought. Oh, thank God you brought that up. Thank God you brought that up. We have a questionnaire, and it's part of the thing we ask all our women in our drug court too. Have you ever been photographed, or have you ever been made to do something that you didn't want to do to get the drugs? And that's where your amateur porn videos are coming from. Is they're taking these women, they're getting them hiring kites, they're videoing them, they're putting them on the internet. Absolutely.
I know in Florida they're attracting a lot of that and bringing girls from around the country on Craigslist ads.
Yep.
And it's all apparently legal and it's kind of looking at your definition, you would think they're engaging in sex for money in that regard. And a lot of times you think, well, it's very close to that, except that it's, I guess, you're not paying the John's being paid as well. I don't know how that. And then seeing where a lot of those young girls are similar backgrounds, where they're coming from families that are less than perfect or problematic, and they're trying to escape it.
I've, I got into a debate. It was, I guess, in Toledo, when I was in Toledo with some folks from New York, about, legalizing it like it is in Vegas. And is it legal? It's not legal in New York, but, okay. And I remember reading a study that was pretty significant for me. Is that even if you choose to do this, even if you go into it willingly, knowingly, there's still higher rates of depression and some other mental illness just based on that in multiple invasions, and they can get bad, and it still can cause some lasting problems in families. So that's why I'm not a favor of legalization anymore. Good questions. Anybody else before we let you go? Well, thank you. I'll be hanging out up here, and then I'll be back this afternoon. I hope you can come for the exciting conclusion. Thank you.